To another Becoming a Modern Man. We are playing Bant Spirits. This is the list. Fairly standard list, nothing too controversial in this particular build. Some of the flex spots are Reflector Mages, which also can be Deputy Detention as well if you want to run that card. Also Mana Dorks and the number thereof can be a flex spot, as can the number of Path to Exiles. And Drogskull Captains, so I mean there's a lot of tweaking around, but I think this is the main base of the deck is fairly stock. So yeah, hopefully not a too controversial build. Used to be a major player in the format, but at the moment it's kind of fallen off. So I just wanted to test it out, see why that might be, and just generally get a feel for the deck, as is the way with my articles and videos. So let's get underway. Okay, so here we are with our first matchup. We are playing against humans. So obviously a deck that's very similar to our own. Obviously humans came first and Bant Spirits kind of followed on from the success thereof. So yeah, similar kind of setup for them. Obviously they're an 8th of our deck, and they're looking to drop lots of humans onto the battlefield. This is our opening hand. It's not the best, but it's decent. We've got turn 1 Bop into turn 2 Spell Queller, or Reflector Mage maybe, Selfless Spirit. So I think it's decent. It's probably more lands than we would ideally like, but turn 2 Spell Queller is fairly decent. Opponent plays Cavern into Vial, which isn't great for our Spell Queller here. Just going to play a land and pass here. I just had to pass. I could have played Selfless Spirit and maybe that would have been the better idea. Keeping up with Spell Queller, but obviously Spell Queller is a lot worse when your opponent has Cavern and Vial on the battlefield. Fortunately for me, my opponent does actually play a creature without Cavern protection, so we are going to get to exile the Champion of the Parish with the Spell Queller. Follows that up with a Noble Hierarch. Not sure if they... I think probably they should have played those cards the other way around. Play Selfless Spirit here. There's no real good reason to Reflector Mage because they can just file the Hierarch right back out. And I think we probably want to save that for something a little bit more impactful. Probably should have played Horizon Canopy instead of Flooded Strand here as well, because then we could have drawn a card end of turn with the Bop mana. So that was a bit of a misplay. Should have done that there and then. So opponent drops another Hierarch, and it looks like a Thalia is coming down, which is fine. We don't run a lot of spells anyway, so Thalia is not terribly impactful. It does mean that Collected Company is going to cost 5, and our Path to Exiles cost 2, but I think it's too big of a cost. We can already produce 5 mana next turn anyway if we do manage to get a Collected Company into play, so it's like Flooded Strand here. Opponent's going to drop a Meddling Mage to memory. Yep, and name Collected Company is one of our more dangerous cards. Obviously we don't have it at the moment, so that's fine. So we're just going to play the Horizon Canopy here. Going to run out Selfless Spirit again. I don't really feel like Reflector Mage is doing a whole lot for us. If we cast it here, mainly because our opponent can just Vial it back into play. Additionally, if we do draw a Collected Company, then it's possible that we might want to Reflector Mage the Meddling Mage back to hand to help us cast it. So opponent takes their Vial up to 3. Attacks for 4 with Thalia. I'm just going to take that. I think that is fine. Can draw a card off Horizon Canopy now, and it does happen to be Collected Company, so pretty happy that we kept this Reflector Mage around. And we also draw into a Supreme Phantom, so we can have a pretty good turn here. So we get to reflect a mage, the meddling mage, back to hand, with the intention that next turn we can Collected Company. Obviously now that our opponent's file is on 3, we don't have to worry about them just dropping the meddling mage right back onto the battlefield. So we get to attack for 9 here. Our opponent has a Reflector Mage, which he's going to use to bounce the Supreme Phantom, which I think is fine. Not entirely sure whether I didn't choose to bounce the Spell Queller, because that seems like it would have been the better option for them. They'd actually get a card back and I wouldn't be able to reuse it easily. I suppose it saves them more damage though. Well, no, they would have said, yeah. I mean, they would have taken 6 either way. I think it probably would have been better for them to take the Spell Queller. Just trying to think of a good reason not that they wouldn't have made that play, but I'm struggling to think of anything really. So opponent drops Tajik. Gonna get to attack here, Mentor onto Thalia. Need to block because that is lethal. Fortunately, the Reflector Mage is still around and can deal with that, so block the Tajik and kill it. Opponent doesn't have enough a way to give it a first strike, so that will kill it off. And we go down to 3. So we can play the Drog Skull. I mean, we could Collected Company, but I think we're much better off playing the Drog Skull Captain here, which then makes our guys have 9 power and be hexproof. So I think that leads us into a pretty good game state, and then we also get to cast Supreme Phantom, which pretty much wraps things up, and that is the game. We could have Collected Company instead. Again, I think the results would have been fairly similar, but I think we're probably hoping for this kind of combination of cards. If we off the Collected Company either way, so I think I'm happy just to cast these out. It's not going to be hugely significant if our opponent drops Meddling Mage next turn, because we're not really planning on them living that long, so I think this is fine. Gives us some blockers as well, and I think that's good enough for the game, and yeah, our opponent concedes from there. So yeah, interesting matchup. Interesting that our opponent didn't bounce Spell Queller. I don't know if that would have changed the game significantly or not. Certainly helped our clock overall and deprived them of the champion. So yeah, kind of interesting, but managed to win out this relatively close game with just getting in with the bigger flyers. Okay, so here we are with game 2. Actually, we'll just look at the sideboard just a second. Okay, so sideboarding against humans. So we don't really want Geist of St. Traft because it's never really going to be able to run past their ground forces. So I don't think it's a very good card in this matchup. Ral Chains is also not all that great. So we're looking to cut those 3 cards. In terms of cards we want to bring in, Path to Exile for obvious reasons. They've got a lot of creatures, and being able to remove any one of those is helpful. And then Knight of Autumn is also a pretty good card in this matchup because it just gives us a lot of options. So we can gain life if we're in a race situation. We can destroy a Vial or Worship, potentially, if they're running that, so it gives us some options there, and also we could just drop it as a 4/3, which could be good enough, depending on the situation, so it's nice and versatile, probably a lot better than Geist is in this kind of matchup. So yeah, not a lot of changes. Our matchup is pretty much as is, and basically we're just looking to be bigger and more disruptive than they are. Okay, so here we are, game 2. This is our opener. It's actually pretty good. We've got a turn 1 Vial, we've got the Path to Exile, and we've got a few spirits. So fairly happy with this opener. Bant's going to play a Hierarch off an unclaimed territory. Just going to fetch up a Temple Garden and play the Vial. Plays Auriok Champion, which presumably is a sideboard card for them, which is kind of interesting. I mean, the protection isn't very relevant, but obviously there are going to be creatures entering the battlefield quite a lot, so it is a fairly decent card in the event that we are just racing each other. We draw a Drogskull Captain, take our Vial up to 1. Unfortunately, we've not really got anything to do with it. Gonna play Selfless Spirit here. Could play the Supreme Phantom, but it doesn't seem... Well, I mean, playing Supreme Phantom to pump up our Selfless Spirit to 3 power seems better than just running out a 1/3. And we're not too concerned about this Auriok Champion attacking. I'm not even sure if we necessarily would want to trade in that situation. So, Vial takes up 2. Just going to keep Spell Queller up here. I think we might as well attack because I don't think we want to block with Selfless Spirit. So what's our opponent got here? Thali's Lieutenant. That would be definitely very problematic for us. Fortunately, we've got the Spell Queller sat ready to take that, so we don't have to worry about that. Opponent appears to be struggling on lands, but they've kind of got all they need in terms of having a Vial and a Hierarch. Well, 2 Hierarchs now, as they drop 1 onto the battlefield. To attack for 4 here. Even with dropping a Supreme Phantom onto the battlefield, we don't really have a good block, so just going to leave that. Take 4 down to 11. Got the path for the Drogskull Captain, for the Champion of the Parish, if that does become a problem. Draw another Selfless Spirit. Seems fine. And while our opponent's tapped out here, I'm going to take advantage of being able to cast Drogskull Captain into Phantasmal Image Drogskull Captain. Obviously, gives us some pretty huge pumps and makes all our creatures hexproof from now on, so we don't have to worry about Path to Exile or Reflector Mage or whatever they might have in terms of targeted removal. In terms of non-targeted removal, we still got Selfless Spirit in the event that they do have anything along those lines. But they are struggling on mana generally, so looking in pretty good position. Opponent plays Mantis Rider, which again pumps up the champion. Phantasmal Image, copying Mantis Rider again. Takes for 6. Pardon me. Takes for 6 with the Champion of the Parish. Just going to path that here. We could have pathed the Mantis Rider and not given our opponent a land, I guess. Because 6 isn't deadly, but I think it's probably more of a risk than we need to take, taking 6 there. And our flyers are so huge that we don't really care about the Mantis Riders all that much. Also, in the event that our opponent does double block, we've got another Selfless Spirit here, so we can just sack it and protect our guys. So just get in with everyone here. So that is 21 damage, I think, in total. So yeah, our opponent's definitely going to need to do some chump blocking. So feeling in a very good position here. Opponent chump blocks, goes down to 4. Takes up Vial. Cast a Reflector Mage, but obviously as our creatures are all hexproof, they just die. I mean, that doesn't do anything, and so that wraps up the game. We managed to make some pretty huge spirits here and wrap up the game, and Auriok Champion unfortunately was not good enough to prevent that from happening. So yeah, that matchup went as well as could be hoped, really. Vile really pushed it over the edge, I think, in terms of letting us drop more creatures than them, and rapidly as well. And so things soon sort of got out of hand from our end. We also had the removal spell as well to deal with any threats that they produced. So that works out really nicely. I'm not sure how good / bad this matchup is in general. I think we're probably a bit more disruptive, which is helpful. But it could be close. We didn't really ever see like a Thalia's Lieutenant or anything that's super blowout, as we managed to spell Queller the one that we did see, which obviously would have tamed the game quite a different direction, given that they would be able to pump all of their creatures at the same time and then potentially get in for a rather large ground attack. Obviously, the fact that all our creatures have flying or thereabouts is pretty good for us, in that we can just swing over their creatures fairly easily, and that's difficult for them to interact with. So that's certainly an advantage. But I'm not entirely sure how close this matchup is in general, but it seems to be probably slightly in our favour overall.